Salutations Rangers, General Belly 101 here, back again with some more lore, and Happy New Year! Yes, happy 2025 to all you beautiful people. Thank you for being with me for a whole nother year, and thank you guys for all the lovely goodness and the warm thoughts and the appreciation, the kindness. I do love and appreciate it, and I love you. And here's to 2025, which is going to be the most ambitious year of this channel, but when the going gets tough, the tough get going, and boy, we sure are going. Yes, sir. So to start off this year's episode with a bang, so let's talk about the best legion of all the Space Marines, and the only legion that was ever truly removed from the setting. But they weren't just removed from the setting, they were outright murdered. So, strap on in and let's get discussing and talking about the 16th Legion, the Wolves of Luna. Also, make sure to subscribe. Goal is to hit 100k by the end of the year. Bloody big goal, but goddamn it, we're gonna do it. The 16th Legionnaires Astartes, known as the Lunar Wolves, were the most effective legion of the Horus Heresy and the Great Crusade, mainly because they were the first legion to receive their Primarch, that being the famed Horus Heresy, the favorite son of the Emperor, the eventual War Master, and would-be arch-traitor. The 16th Legion would have two main cognomens throughout the entirety of their history, the first being the Lunar Wolves and the second being the Sons of Horus. The latter was received after the triumph of Ullanor, when the Emperor had suggested that Horus rename the Legion in honor of his title as War Master. Horus would reject this offer initially, but after with the whole escapade with the Interrex Empire, a human empire with Xenos client races, he would then accept the offer, and they would take up the livery of the Eye of Horus as well as Sea Green. And in the case of the former, it is, in my humble opinion, the best cognomen of the entirety of the legions, not because of its name, but rather because how they got it. The story goes that the 16th Legion was already one of the most veteran legions of the Unification Wars, and they were the first ever legion to engage combats outside of Terra itself. The two main targets were being Mars and Luna, our moon. The Red Planet would be pacified and incorporated into the Imperium via the Treaty of Olympus, but the Luna gene codes, they proved a bit more independent. Thus, the Luna deployed the entirety of the 16th Legion to hammer them home into submission, and it is said that the vicious assault of the Lunar Wolves was so terrible, so great, and so aggressive that it absolutely shook the gene cults to their very core. They were said to desperately call in the Emperor and beg him to please call off his wolves. Hence, the Legion gained its cognomen of the Lunar Wolves, or the Wolves of Luna, and a black wolf's head upon a white crescent moon would be their sigil. And again, it's in my opinion the best cognomen of all. That story alone sells it 100-fold. It is so good. It is so good. But the 16th Legion under Horus would continue to rise and shine and triumph, drawing recruits from Terra but as well as their new homeworld of Cthonia. They had the highest amount of compliances and war tallies on their victory honor. They were beyond a doubt the most effective legion, with the 1st Legion Dark Angels and 13th Legion Ultramarines admittedly coming close. At the end of the day, Horus had way too much of a head start and he was just way too goddamn effective as a leader. During the course of the heresy, the Legion would be divided, with many loyalist elements returning to the old Lunar Wolves, rejecting the whole idea of the Sons of Horus, with one Garvio Loken most famously claiming that he was never a son of Horus, he was always a Lunar Wolf. And that statement goes more than just a simple declaration of loyalty. Originally, the term Son of Horus was used to refer to Space Marines within the 16th Legion who bore a striking resemblance to their father, be it out of random happenstance or due to the genetic alchemy of the gene seed taking especial hold of them. Garvio Loken was notable because he was the first member who was not a son of Horus, i.e. he did not look like his father, to be admitted into the Mournival, the personal council of Horus Lupercal himself. Throughout the entirety of the heresy, the Sons of Horus would continue to fight doggedly, most often than not against every form of loyalist element, but especially their own Lunar Wolves. However, the war was incredibly difficult on both the Sons of Horus and the Lunar Wolves in and of themselves, with one Lunar Wolves captain remarking that by towards the end of the heresy, many of the veterans who had long conquered nearly most of the galaxy over 200 years were all but dead. And this is the case on both sides, because while there were veteran elements on both sides, both of them eventually would die out, and both legions eventually would be lost. More especially so with the death of Horus, and Abaddon taking over as the new War Master and transforming the Sons of Horus into the Black Legion. Now, that's your TLDR. But now we get to the point of talking about what do people get wrong about the Lunar Wolves. Also, I just understood now that I didn't mention the series in the beginning, but yeah, what people get wrong about, by the thumbnail and the... Right, I'm a professional, moving on please. The thing that people get wrong about the Lunar Wolves is that they're gone. They don't exist anymore in any capacity. And unlike the Sons of Horus, which were transformed into the Black Legion by Abaddon, the Lunar Wolves were murdered. But now, it's time for me to explain what I mean by that. With every single traitor legion, they are no longer what they were in the Heresy. They have been transformed into something. The Death Guard, for instance, went from being exonerable masters of attrition and infantry-based warfare into literally walking horrors of mutated, gross, plague-filled zombies, essentially. 1,000 Suns went from being the masters of arcane arts into being twisted, corrupted sorcerers at the head of a legion of automatons. The World Eaters went from being somewhat noble yet very vicious and brutal men into rampaging, raging berserkers. And, on and on and on and on. But of course I should mention the Emperor's Children, who went from being noble scions who desired the purity of perfection and dedication into basically every single tag on an NSFW page. Because you gotta complete the big four now. But for the Sons of Horus and the Lunar Wolves, they were completely removed. For those of you who don't know, the Sons of Horus were transformed into the Black Legion, as I've said like 3 times at this point, but the Black Legion's not the Sons of Horus. The Black Legion is an amalgamation of Chaos Space Marines as a whole. Any and all Space Marines who did not assign to their parent legion, or they wanted to do something different, or they wanted something new, a new legion to join to, basically outcasts, etc., were joined up with the Black Legion. The whole idea and culture and theory of the Sons of Horus was thrown out. Because, Abaddon don't think too kindly about his dad. But, as I mentioned before, whereas the Sons of Horus were transformed, the Lunar Wolves were murdered, outright so. First by their brethren, quite literally on Istavan 3, but moreover by the Heresy itself. Whilst 1 or 2 Lunar Wolves may have existed after the end of the Heresy, there is no total official or even theory, really, that there was a band of loyalist Lunar Wolves that became a chapter. We simply just don't have any. The Lunar Wolves are truly a tragedy. Granted, every single legion is a tragedy of its own kind, but the Lunar Wolves are especially tragic. They were the greatest of the great. The Space Marine of the Space Marine, even greater than the vaunted First Legion. And ultimately, they became the Sons of Horus, the most damnable evil traitors of all. But in doing so, they also lost what they were. Whilst many did claim to the title of Lunar Wolf, and fought violently to maintain that, in doing so, by choosing to fight, they killed themselves. And they died out as a result. The point is made even more poignant by the fact that no Sons of Horus survived. Thus, Cthonia and its culture, and thus the Legion's culture, also did not survive with it. It's much like their Primarch, completely removed from the reality of Warhammer 40k. No instance of them survives. And depending on your outlook, that's either terribly sad or very poetic. But now let me talk a little bit more about what exactly was lost. You see, because most people know of the Lunar Wolves, but they don't know the Lunar Wolves, and Sons of Horus to a lesser extent. The culture of the Lunar Wolves and the Sons of Horus was incredibly unique. For those of you who don't know, Cthonia was originally a mining world. It was very, very, very rich in precious metals and ores and materials. So, what the interstellar human empire did way back when was set it up as a mining colony. But when everything went to hell in a handbasket, they threw out the baby with the bathwater and abandoned the planet in totality. The only thing that was left were the labor unions as well as the gangs. Thus, over time, the two would form into one entity, known as labor gangs. And essentially, with the sheer scarcity of it, remember, it was a mining world, it was far from being self-sufficient, and it was mined to hell and back, so much so that there are massive tunnels that gouge the insides of the world. Because of this, a type of tribalistic warfare began. Tribes, labor gangs, would fight over territory, they would fight over resources, and eventually they'd fight over honor. Initially, the sheer scarcity of it produced a very vicious, a very terrible, and a very direct and ruthless way of warfare. But as things began to mold over time, that scarcity became less and less. It didn't completely go away, mind you, but it became less of an issue. A combination of a lot of people dying and self-sustaining sufficiency going up kind of balanced each other out a bit. In the end, what became the most poignant was the idea of honor. But honor as in the sense of a tribal leader. The two elements of Chthonian society, and thus the Lunar Wolves and the Sons of Horus, was the idea of 1, martial strength, but 2, social charisma. As we can see, any and all leader of a war tribe or clan system, whatever it may be, you gotta have that silver tongue to charm people with your benevolent words to make them do what you wish. But when they resist the silver tongue, that is when you bring out the steel fist and make them do what you want them to do. So too did Cthonia evolve into that. The chieftains of the tribes were known for their incredible charisma and intense martial prowess. Whilst raiding was still done for resources, more so is the idea of honor, and it translated into something different. The warfare itself was hilariously brutal and quite savage, but at the same time, there was a noble honor about it. You were expected to fight your opponent and beat him to a bloody pulp, but at the same time, you're also expected to give him the respect and honor worthy of his station and his actions specifically. When Cthonia was discovered, Horus Heresy had managed to unite the planet. He had become the chieftain of chieftains, the big boss. And I do want to point out, whilst I do say chieftain and use tribalistic a lot, tribalistic elements were very important, but it was also tribal gang. Our real-world gangster culture from circa 1930s, 40s, etc. heavily influenced Chthonian culture. Or at least that's the impression that's given off. There's one particular scene in the Horus Heresy books where Horus speaks to the other Lunar Wolves in a very thick and rough Chthonian gangster accent in Chthonian, and it makes them all smile. And thus, that culture then translated into the Legion, with even many of the old Terranborns picking this up. This is personified by the structure of the Legion. The company was the greatest form of structure. There were no battalions, there were no chapters. But the thing is though, a company was either a few hundred Marines or a few thousand. It varied wildly. And the captains were the end-all and be-all. They were the war chiefs, if you would. It's known that the informal title of chieftain did exist, but it was more so a mark of honor for veteran soldiers, mainly sergeants, rather than any concrete title. With the Lunar Wolves and the Sons of Horus, the individual captains hold much sway on two bases: their personal charisma and their martial pride. In hindsight, one could see the fractures of the heresy already forming, since a captain was essentially the head of his own tribe, his war host, his warband, whatever you want to call it. Where the captain leaned, his men would usually follow. Hence, we have examples of companies being led by individual captains either accepting or rejecting the War Master's decree for war. In addition to this, the style of warfare that the Lunar Wolves did was very different from the other legions. Now, most people think drop pod assault, they think, okay, like Blood Angels or maybe Willowed Eaters or Space Wolves, but what people get wrong about these melee legions is that each melee legion has its own unique brand of melee combat. The Blood Angels are about speed and lethality. The Willowed Eaters are about straightforward brutality. The Space Wolves are very much a cohesive Viking-style warfare, with big blocks of infantry as well as individual soldiers proving their difference and becoming champions. The Lunar Wolves, they are different in that they focus on the Aphthelon. Aphthelon is a Chthonian word which can be directly translated into the killing strike or the final blow. This is a term that was used in Cthonia, when one gang would launch a vicious attack on another gang's leader. It would be incredibly brutal, and the main goal would be to kill the gang leader as well as his supporting leadership, thus in essence killing the gang, delivering the killing blow. And this would usually come at the end of a long war. It was the final act, if you will. The Lunar Wolves, and Sons of Horus both, practiced this perfectly. They would identify the prime elements of command, and they would launch a vicious attack to destroy it wholesale. The most common tactic was known as the Spearhead, which was made up about 4 to 5 companies, and they would be dropped immediately via orbital insertion, either via stormboards or drop pods, and they would destroy the enemy entirely. But whereas most people think, oh, it's just fast-moving, hard-hitting, no, it is also slow-moving and destructive. The Lunar Wolves were a huge advocate for Terminator armor, and they had one of the highest stockpiles of Terminator armor. In addition, they were one of the greatest advocates of Breacher Marines as well, in addition to jump assault troops, that you had two options. You either moved fast and hit like a truck, or you were built like a tank and you hit like a tank. This is shown perfectly in their first company. These black-clad warriors were made up of 2 formations. The first being the Gesterian Terminator Elite, clad in Cataphracti pattern Terminator armor, or the Catalan Reivers, which were elite jump assault troops. And here we have the 2 flavors of war: fast-moving, hard-hitting Catalans, using their magnificent jump packs, bolters, and power weapons to cut through the enemy. Or you had the Terminators, slow-moving, unyielding, utterly destructive. The Lunar Wolves were one of the few, if not the only legion, who made pure emphasis on both heavy armored units as well as fast-moving, hard-hitting units. Both the Terminators and the Reavers, both fast and slow elements, hit like a truck. The difference was, though, how they got to the point. You either went balls to the wall and fast as all hell, or you put on so much armor that you resembled more of a walking house than you did a man. This style of warfare was incredibly unique to the Lunar Wolves and Sons of Horus. It gave them hilarious flexibility, in combination with their distinct companies, meant that a Sons of Horus commander, and a Lunar Wolf commander for that matter, could pick and choose elements and use them however he wanted. It's unknown, but I highly suspect they also made great use of hammer and anvil tactics. You have Spartans clogged to the brim with Terminators advancing on a position, and at the same time you have Catalan Reavers jumping out of Stormbirds, absolutely demolishing the enemy's flanks. It makes a great deal of sense to me. Okay, but now you may be asking, alright Brad, you just gave us like a mini rundown of the Legion now, like what do you mean? Well, that's to emphasize my point. Think about these two things. The noble ganger, circa Al Capone if he wasn't actually kind of an asshole, but the idea of the noble mobster, the noble war chief. Combine the fact with a legion that utilizes both very fast, hard-hitting troops, but also very slow, very durable, hard-hitting troops. Think about it. Which chapter in 40k does this? Warband, whatever it may be. Think about it. There is none. There is no mainstream, proper, well-recognized chapter. And when I say this, I mean the chapter was written in the past decade. I don't care about X chapter from White Dwarf article number 2 in bloody 1980s. All of this was done to purely hammer in the point. There is no successor to the Lunar Wolves or these Sons of Horus. Their culture, their style of warfare, their whole ethos and philosophy was gone. They were noble men, but they were also vicious killers. They were barbarians on the battlefield, princes in the palace. If you read any of the books, you can see that. They're very upstanding, very noble, very dignified men until you get to the battlefield and they become something more akin to demons. Also, read Horus Rising, bloody good book. And as I mentioned before, the Lunar Wolves were murdered. The heresy killed them. At the end of the heresy, there were no Lunar Wolves left. There are stories of loyalist traitor elements forming modern-day chapters, the most poignant example being the Silver Skulls, which were loyalist island warriors who became a chapter under the guise of the Ultramarines. But that fate did not exist for the Lunar Wolves. The Lunar Wolves were the legion that felt the most aggrieved by the betrayal of the War Master. Whilst every loyalist from a traitor legion hated their Primarch, for the Lunar Wolves it was their father who was the greatest betrayer. Not only was he the head of the betrayal, he was supposed to be the paragon of the loyalists. He was someone touted as, well, the next emperor, or as close as you can get to such a thing, and he became the emperor's greatest enemy who would place him upon the throne of gold. Thus, the bitter fighting between the loyalists and the traitors of the Lunar Wolves and Sons of Horus was some of the most bloody, because they had the most to prove. The Sons of Horus knew that if Horus lost, they were dead and they were damned, because they had thrown everything away. The Lunar Wolves would not allow the Sons of Horus to win, because they would not allow the name of the Lunar Wolves to be removed. So ultimately, the two of them fought for differing ideals, but for the same purpose. Neither wanted to be destroyed. Neither wanted to be forgotten. Neither wanted their honor to be besmirched. Yet in the end, that's exactly what happened. The heresy killed off the Lunar Wolves. Their name is forgotten. Their deeds are forgotten, in some cases censured. There is no modern chapter that bears their heraldry. There is no warband that holds on to their traditions. There is nothing. They're wholly absent. No one can ever claim to be their descendant, because no one even remembers their name. The Sons of Horus too were lost. Abaddon, in hatred of his father, broke the Sons. He changed them into his Legion of Black, for they no longer held to any legion. They shed their colors and donned the black robe of damnation. They were something new, something different, and definitely not the Sons of Horus. The Lunar Wolves are one of my favorite legions, just purely because of what they represent. For those of you who know me, I adore dichotomies. Someone who is incredibly strong and durable and vicious, but someone who's also noble, loving, caring, and just. And the Lunar Wolves are the epitome of that dichotomy, in every single form. They are gangsters and barbarians, yes, but they're also noble lords and princes. Even in their warfare, you could have men moving at Mach 17 wielding enough power to destroy a world, but at the same time, you have slow-moving juggernauts that could withstand the end of the universe and still wait for the next war to begin. The Lunar Wolves are the epitome of a dichotomy. In addition to their color scheme, their name, their cognomen, their origins, their history of it, their lore, I just adore it. So it's a very bitter thing for me to have to swallow that they don't exist. They were the greatest space marines of the Great Crusade, and considering that the heresy killed all the great things of the Crusade, it makes sense that the Lunar Wolves are added to that list. We lost a lot of things in the Great Crusade, but people often forget that the Lunar Wolves are at the top of that list. People often forget just how important they were. They forget how life-changing they were. The Great Crusade would not have happened without the Lunar Wolves. They were, without a doubt, the most effective legion. They were the greatest amongst us. And they were lost. No, not even lost. They turned on us. They became traitors. They became the sons of Horus. And those few Lunar Wolves that remained, they died trying to be remembered. But in the end, both would be forgotten. Both would be lost. In essence, both were murdered. And in the end, that is what people get wrong about the Lunar Wolves. They, like their Primarch, died. And the dichotomy of the Legion too died. For Horus, the greatest son of the Emperor, died. Just so as Horus, the arch traitor of the Emperor, died as well. So too did the Wolves of Luna, and Horus's sons also pass. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. It is one of my favorites to make. I may do a whole deep dive about the Lunar Wolves. I absolutely adore this legion. I've always adored them purely on that little story about how they got their cognomen, but reading into them and looking into their lore and realizing how they work, I love dichotomies, and this is dichotomy, the legion, so I'm like, I love it. It's fantastic. So, to the comment section down below, I'm going to pose this question to you, and I want every single person to answer this question. Do you think that both the Space Wolves and Lunar Wolves being dead... Space Wolves and Lunar Wolves? No. Do you guys think that the Lunar Wolves and the Sons of Horus being dead in 40k is a good thing? Or would you like to see a chapter and warband of each? I personally fall into the latter. I want a chapter of Lunar Wolves, and I want them to be old-fashioned and fuck the Codex. But yeah, thank you guys also very much for watching. It means the world to me. Do make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Remember, by the end of the year, we're going to try and hit 100k. Is it going to happen? Fuck yes it is, because I'm going to make sure it happens somehow. But hey, thank you for watching. And a very big thank you to my members. Shout out to my Lieutenant tiers, Mr. Eddie V3, Miss Majora of the Void, and shout out to my Sergeant tier members, Mr. Damiak, Mr. Andy McGee, Mr. RB20 Guy, Mr. Warsmith.Fireheart, and Mr. Corns Butcher. And a massive, huge, ginormous shout out to my private tier members. Shout out to Mr. Thomas Moselons, Mr. Ivan_SVW, and Mr. Micah Hader. Hey, you, all of you, I love you. I want you to know that. And if you want to join these beautiful, awesome people, sign up to the membership so you get access to these videos a full day early. This one won't be though, because I was supposed to make this video yesterday, but I didn't because New Year's, and I woke up at like 2 o'clock, so sorry. My god, I'm a terrible person. In addition to me failing you about that first part, you also get access to the Discord and a bunch of other awesome benefits. You get a hand in help making these videos, behind the scenes stuff, polls, and my love and support. But remember, this will always be free. So whether you want to or not doesn't matter to me. Best way to help is subscribe, and I will love you just the same. Mwah! Yes, I will. But ladies and gentlemen, that has been enough of me. I promise to all my members, next video is going to be out on Sunday, but for you guys, it will be out on Saturday. Cross my heart. Or no, it'll be out on Monday, but it'll be made on Sunday. The next time, it will be 24 hours. I promise. Promise on my cat. If not, the cat fucking gets it. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been the General Bradley 101. You've been beautiful, awesome, and amazing people. Thank y'all all so very much for watching. Make sure to stay honest out there, boys and girls, unlike me. And I will catch y'all next time. Dismiss, Rangers. Lunar Wolves are the better wolves. Space Wolves can go suck a fat one.